Hello, KFC SuperCoaches. This is the Phantom speaking. Welcome to another edition of KFC SuperCoach Live TV. We've just come down from the Gather Round High over here in Adelaide. What a weekend it was, and some big KFC SuperCoach implications as well from a big round of footy heading into round 6. We're 5 down. Plenty of data to look at. Some interesting decisions to make, and not a lot of options when we're talking rookies coming through either. But we've got our rookie guru, Dan Batten, here, and of course, the KFC SuperCoach investor, Dan Bagala, as well, looking very sharp. I know the comments are going to come through, I reckon, about the best looking bloke in KFC SuperCoach. We'll start with you, investor. How's things?
Going well, mate. I love the gather round. Your mob over in South Australia put on an amazing soiree of sorts. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It obviously started pretty poorly for the Blues. We got jumped by Red Hot Crows, who I think will finish in the top 8. But otherwise, the rest of the weekend was absolutely amazing. Some of the matchups, like GWS Hawthorn, who would have thought that would have come to fruition, and 2-point victory to the Giants. But otherwise, Brodie Grundy's still doing well. There's a bit of a threat that Gawn's going to come back this week, which could really hurt those that are short on English. But Roberts did a cracking job for the Swans. Obviously, bargain basement rookie, started as a sub a few weeks, obviously some sub-affected scores, but he must be the number one trading option this week, along with probably no one else except for Williams in the forward line, and then Seamus Mitchell, who I watched a play that he did at the end of that game against GWS, just literally took the ball from fullback and ran it halfway up the field with a linking handball. So I see him getting a good opportunity for Hawthorn under Sam Mitchell. So he's someone I'll be looking at, defender forward next week, to link the likes of Harry Sheasel back and give me flexibility throughout my side.
Yes, of course. The DPPs, 41, I think it was, new DPPs into KFC SuperCoaches, which I'm sure if you've been looking at your trades and your team throughout the week, you would have noticed them. Plenty of swinging options, and we'll talk about a little bit later. Guys to look out for in the coming weeks and how it could affect upcoming trades. But Dan Batten, Bagala mentioned about some of the rookie names coming through. Firstly, how is your team tracking, and who we're going to target this week? Do you agree with what the investor said?
I certainly do agree. It looks like he's about to execute one of the biggest business deals of all time there. Just, got the AirPods in, the hands up and everything. Anything he says, I'll be convinced by, I reckon. But he hit the nail on the head with the rookies. Matty Roberts looks like the number one target. Your man over in SA, you've been harping on about it for the last 3 years, about how he averaged 200 SuperCoach points in the under 18s. But he looks like he actually has a decent role, and he can find the footy, and he's worked on his outside game, really worked on his running capacity, which was the big question mark and why he did slide in the draft initially. So I think he is one I'll be bringing in this week. He's 129k at the moment on the subble, as Patch from Jock Reynolds put it.
I like it.
3 sub games, and that's quite a good term. I was tempted to steal it, but had to credit it in case he was listening. But of course. And then Matty Johnson as well is another one I think who could be worth a buy potentially. He's a midfielder for the Dockers. He's had one small price rise at 139, but a similar case to Matty Roberts, where he has had a couple of sub-affected games. Probably going to play more on the outside as a wingman, but kicked a goal late in that Suns game and ended up with the 60 points. So, and it looks like Dylan Williams, Matt Turner from Adelaide Advertiser reporting, that's just hot off the presses, that Dylan Williams was training with the A side at training today. So it looks like he'll get a third game. But I guess the concern for him is the long-term job security. Once the likes of Tom Jonas and others come in, and with the amount of halfbacks they have at their disposal, one bad game, he could be out. So I'd say that Roberts, with the injuries that they have at the Swans and the way he's played, he's earned himself at least a couple of weeks there.
But there is a bit of hope on Dylan Williams. I think Tom Jonas is going to return this week. But the key, I think, the hipster, who is Matt Turner, if you do listen to the Lair as well, pointed out on this week's show, is Darcy Byrne-Jones has gone forward, kicked a couple of goals, put some real pressure on, and potentially probably going to play there again this week. So that's opened up the spot for Williams. That's where Williams is slotting in, even with Ryan Burton back in the side. So longer term, who knows? Obviously, he's the last guy in. Is he the first guy out sometimes? But he's gone back there. He's played well. He sort of saved his career, the move to defence late in the sample season last year, when a number of onlookers thought he was probably going to be gone when his contract ran out. So good to see him making it, and there's probably a spot for him in a little while. There's a question here from Michael about Matt Roberts' job security, given he's been the sub. That is the big question. I guess I do agree with you, though, Dan. He's finally got his chance. He was very good. The Swans raved about him over summer. Isaac Heaney in particular as well pointed him out in one of the press conferences about how good how impressive his running has been. And you mentioned that was the knock on him a little bit coming into the system. So plays a role. The Swans are down a few blokes as well, and he fit in nicely in that win over Richmond. So I think, Michael, to your question, I think he'll be all right for a little while now. He's earned his spot. He was very close anyway. He wasn't the sub because he wasn't up to it. He was a sub because he was very close as well.
Yeah.
So I like Roberts again. But Dan Magala, who's coming out? Ruben Ginbey, Adam Simpson. He got subbed out last week against the Cats after a rough start, poking the eye from danger. Adam Simpson's made a few comments about they still want to manage him, but could it be in games? His break-even's getting up there. But again, as we know, one score at the price at the moment can turn things around. Are you going to be going on him? And what do we look for in terms of other guys to jump out? There's no one really screaming, trade me.
Yeah, I mean, my team structure is not ideal at the moment. Like, my hand's sort of forced to someone in the guts has to leave the side. And I think it's going to be Cam McKenzie, the Hawthorn youngster who's also been on the subble. He scored his break even, though it was 14, and he came on and scored 14 points. So his price won't be that heavily impacted. He did get updated as DPP, so he's mid-forward. Again, I don't really want to play him week on week because I don't really trust the volatility of his scoring. But he's the player I've earmarked to move out for Roberts. You were hot on Roberts last year. I mean, he's pretty unlucky in his first game, barely touched it, but clearly has pedigree of scoring SuperCoach points in his past. And I remember watching the game Friday night. Richmond obviously got done by the Swans, but I saw him and I said, is this that Roberts from last year? He looks so composed out there, so good in the contest, and he didn't really tick the stats over too heavily. Like, he scored 90 plus from about 14 disposals. So it just shows you he's a contested ball machine, as Phantom alluded to last year, and now he'll have his opportunity. And I think a guy like Longmire would like to give a guy like him a chance. And they do have a number of issues with a number of senior players injured. I think he'll play, and I don't think he'll be susceptible to the sub vest just yet. But I'm picking him by necessity. It's the only option there for me. I can't even bring Dylan Williams in because of the structure of my side. I don't want to get rid of Fergus Green yet. Fergus Green's starting to come good. He's scoring 70s week on week, which is great, and has quite a bit of burn to go on his cash flow. So for me, it's looking like it's going to be Cam McKenzie out of my side, with consideration as to whether I keep Green or move him on. So my idea when I play SC each year is to chase rankings. It's to chase the highest position I can get myself to. And with Green sitting there, probably he's the perfect, stepping stone to someone like a Dawson or a Neil or a Laird or a Took Miller, who I haven't been able to get just yet. Because I don't think, judging by some of the performances we've seen from Tom Green, that he's going to be entrenched in that top 8. I think he might be a great pick, but I think he'll still be a bit of a clogger. I think he'll finish 15th to 18th in terms of overall points scoring for the midfield, and he's already given up a week's performance. So I'll see how Baker goes tomorrow night against the Dockers over in the West, and then I'll make a bit of a call as to whether I get super aggressive and move someone like Green off with the proceeds from McKenzie to Roberts. So that's something I'm thinking about at team selection tonight.
Interesting take there, Tom Green. Yes, we'll miss a week for that dangerous tackle if you haven't been following. You're probably right. He's burnt the ball a little bit early, especially in the last couple of weeks. Had a lot of the footy playing catch up in terms of his KFC SuperCoach scoring. As you know, I've still got high hopes, and you'd be pretty happy with him at the bottom end of your midfield once it's complete. You got to think about whether it's best for your team. Are you improving your primo count? You're not, but you're obviously improving your Uber primo. So, where's that? Uber primo count. Got that one out. Dan Batten, you're a Tom Green owner. I'll be holding. I want to keep going with my upgrades. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I think I'm going to hold as well. I don't know if you've been on the blower to Tim Mitchell over the week, Dan, but it sounds like it's right out of the Tim Mitchell playbook there. But I think he's even holding Tom Green, which says a bit. I mean, yeah, he has been a little bit unlucky, as you said. And I think he gave away a 50 very early and a free kick in that game against the Hawks, which sort of impacted his scoring. But yeah, and he's often having 15 touches for 40 points at halftime, which is a bit frustrating, but I think it will come for him. He's winning a stack of the footy. And, if he does clean up his disposal just a little bit, it's the difference between him going 105 to 120, and he'll start to have more of those games. We saw in round one, he scored a 130. I don't mind it to get to a Dawson potentially if you don't have him. I'm one of those without Dawson. I'm considering going to Dawson this week, but I've got a bit of extra cash in the bank. But yeah, I'd probably be holding Green. If it was 2 weeks, it's probably a bit of a different story. But and if it's an injury as well, because who knows if he's going to come back at the same level. But yeah, I think he's going to be raring to go after that week off.
Just on Jordan Dawson, Dan Magala, firstly, I did make him VC. You tried to talk me out of it last week, Friday night footy here on KFC SuperCoach Live TV, but I went with it. Now, 655K or thereabouts, I think, for Dawson now. DPP defender midfielder is the highest averaging midfielder now, I think, in KFC SuperCoach. Are we stretching the budget to get him? What you mentioned it briefly there, Dan Batten's also weighing it up. What's your recommendations for? Well, firstly, what are you thinking, and then is he a must for everyone else, or is he now at the price where you're sort of sacrificing a longer term team by doing it?
I think he's a late Amazette. He's a must. He's a must-have player on our sides. Like, there's something different. There's something scary about Dawson this year with the captain's armband on. He's going inside. He really took trips to the cleaners on Thursday night, and some of the inside 50 kicks were just absolute laser beams. So I think he is a must-have. Perhaps there will be some sort of defensive mechanism applied against him. Perhaps McGuinness gets back on the side this week. I think they're playing the Hawks. Maybe someone goes to him and puts some pressure on his scoring capacity.
Can anyone go near him?
If someone goes near him, it would be a good thing for non-owners. But he's got an unbelievable threshold. I mean, he's got an uncapped ceiling, what he can do. He always performs. He can go anywhere on the ground when the proverbial hits the fan. So for me, he's a must. Again, like long-term, yes, you're probably paying overs for him right now. You're paying a premium to buy him. And to give you an example, last week I was stuck in the Doherty issue. So Dothraki was in my side. I had to either trade Fergus Green, who was premature. I didn't really want to do that. That would have got me to Dawson, Smokey Dawson, but instead I opted for an underpriced and better BE on Tom Stewart. And Tom Stewart came back, had 22 disposals, punched out 135, and it was a Tom Stewart we've come to love and own. So for me, there probably is plenty of value in that defence, and there are some halcyon defenders coming back in vogue. Jake Lloyd, he's now the Jake Lloyd of seasons gone past. He's back. Tom Stewart's still underpriced at 606K, and then outside of that, you've got two players that I have as absolute must-haves, and that's Bob Sinclair, Carves Sinclair, and then Sicily. You've got to have Sicily as well, and they've both got pretty substantial break-evens still, with the likelihood we'll be able to pick them up for about 500 grand each over the next 1 to 2 weeks. So plenty of great talent in that backline. So for me, I think that 150K long-term will help you out. However, it's a very hard game when you're coming up week on week against the best defender in the game and he's punching out 140, 150, and it puts you on the back foot from the get-go. So Supercoach, if you would ask Tim Mitchell, is a much more fun game when you close those short squeezes off. You get those players that are in vogue, the ones that score really heavily with champion data, close them off. For me, right now, it's English and it's Dawson. If I had both of them, my life would be complete. But instead, I'm stressed out most weeks when those blokes go into battle. So, I think if you want to make it a stress-free year, you pay the premium, you buy Dawson, you bank the points, you bank a guy who's probably going to feature in the top 3 in Brownlow night if he keeps this up, and you pay it up, or you look for the discounted premiums being Jake Lloyd, Sinclair, Sicily, and you redeploy that capital elsewhere because, as we've seen, some of these rookies are hitting their thresholds of price appreciation a lot earlier than we suspect. Cam McKenzie, he's just had a sub-affected game. That's going to stuff everything up for the next month. So we have to think about that 150. Could it be the difference between taking Fergus Green to an underpriced Coniglio in 2 weeks? Perhaps it is. These are the sorts of things we need to think about. So coaches need to balance that. But to take stress away, I'd pay the premium. I'd buy that high-priced asset and just go lock him away, forget it. I can swing him into the mids if I need, and off we go to the races.
Yeah, very well said. Jake Lloyd is an interesting one. We raved about him on this show for years, and now he's scored 4 cases Supercoach tons to start the year, and we're not even talking about him. So he's back in a different way. Champion Data, Daniel Horn, I think, spoke on radio this week and mentioned about the contested possession Jake Lloyd's winning. I think he had 11 contested possessions on the weekend in round 5. So
that's more than he had in 2020 all up, I reckon.
Exactly. Yeah. So we know how good he is with the ball in hand. He's a safe kick. He chooses the safe option. But if his scores, I don't think he's had more kicks this year. He's using it better, I think, on last year's numbers, but winning the ball in a contested situation too, which is bumping his numbers up again. So for a guy that's done it before in those big ways, I think it's a good buy this week. Sicily, you have to wait a little bit on him. Jack Sinclair, though, Dan Batten, what do you think on him? Ross is using him a little bit in the middle. And we know how skillful he is with his hands, pushed him up there, and it's probably hurting him a little bit. We know how good he is at distributing the ball across half back, and that was key to his scoring last year. He's come down in price. Given the other options, do you like him as an upgrade target, or do you think he's not cheap enough to consider given what else we got?
Well, he does come up against the Blues this weekend, who don't defend halfbacks great, I don't think. But yeah, I still think it's a bit of a watch and wait and see for Sinclair with the role. I mean, he was on about 80 at halftime and looking great guns for picking him up ahead of round 6. But then Ross did throw him into the midfield for something different, and with those increased CBAs, he it didn't translate to, I guess, sort of the opposite of Jordan Dawson, where, his scoring's gone up, whereas Jack Sinclair's scoring's gone down. And, he didn't have the free kick-ins that he usually has. And, he plays more in that, I guess, even like it's pretty similar the way Nick Dacos and him play, getting the 1-2 handballs, short kicks, pretty efficient kicks, whereas when he's in the midfield, Sinclair is, doesn't have that sort of time to use the ball. So, I'd be watching for another week on him. The fact that he only ended up on 90 odd after 75 is a little bit of a concern, I think, because of that switch. But yeah, certainly down the track, I think he's an option. I mean, if you had to pull the trigger this week, you probably would. You'd get him over Sicily. I've got some big concerns over him as an owner. He was lucky to get to 90 on the weekend with a goal late from a 50-meter penalty, and that was from an intercept mark as well. So those two plays, and he's probably down to 70 points, which he scored the week before when he had about 2 touches in the second half. So yeah, certainly some concerns for him. I'd be waiting at least a couple of weeks. And the fact that the Giants took 17, they could kick 17 behinds, and Sicily only took 1 kick out, was also a concern for his scoring. And that was a large part of why he was such a consistent scorer last year, was sprinting off to the kick-in bag. Seems that he's giving him out to the younger kids now, which is a surprise considering he's the skipper.
Well, Seamus Mitchell took 2 on debut, more than Sicily. Sicily had 6 against the Swans, I think, in round 3. He only had 11 for the year. This stage last year, he had 19. So there's definite data to look at in terms of what he's not doing. And yeah, disappointing to see that happen on the weekend. Definitely a watch. Quickly, another one for you, Dan Batten. Matthew Murphy's going for the boost this week, going Jinby McKenzie, which we've discussed, happy about trading them out. What about Oscar Baker? I'm weighing it up to break evens, only up to about 47. But are you happy trading someone like him out now? And then secondly, I think we'll go to Bagala as well on Jack Zeeble and whether we still like him now as a dual position forward defender.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's had that one game where he scored the 90 and the 110 in the preseason. But besides that, games outside of Marvel Stadium, he hasn't looked great. I mean, Optus Stadium, if there was one stadium outside of Marvel that suits him, it'd probably be that, considering, it's a big ground and a lot of outside run there, and obviously dry conditions as well. Last week, still managed to score 50 in the wet, but they are, aren't the conditions for Oscar Baker. I'm considering the same, going Baker straight to Bontempelli or Jimby to Dawson or Miller. They're my got a bit of cash lying around, so may as well go big. But yeah, I actually don't mind the idea of keeping Jimby. I mean, we've heard what Adam Simpson has said, that they may give him a rest. Obviously, watch teams tonight, but if they don't, then they don't really have anyone else. So he's either going to be playing in a prime role across half-back or in a prime role in the midfield. And we saw he scored 40 points. They stated his fatigue, and he scored 40 points against the Cats, who are absolutely smashing them in the space of a half before he was subbed. So I think there's still upside in Jimby, and he could potentially make another 80 to 100K Whereas Baker, I'm not so sure about his upside and his reliability as an on-field scorer as well.
Yep. Quickly, my take on Zeeble, 440k for a defender forward averaging 100. Still plenty of value there. What do you think, Dan Magala?
I think with regards to Matt Murphy here, I think you probably just stump up and pay for one of the premium guys at 580, being Sinclair. Perhaps if you can stretch it, maybe can you get to Tom Stewart? That's what I prefer to do, because obviously we saw during the week or at the start of the week, Alistair Clarkson's already started to drip feed some names that might be coming back on the side. Paul Curtis, Aaron Hall. Aaron Hall's done his sort of conditioning that he needed to do in the VFL. So perhaps Hall comes back on the side. It'll obviously cannibalise some of the kick-ins that Jack Zeeble has, and probably some of the opportunities he has to get that easy handball receive off the back flank. I would be worried, and I'd like to see how that plays out for Zeeble. But I don't know if I'm not 100% sure whether I see Zeeble as being a long-term solution this year. I feel like at his age, Father Time is against him. Could there be a soft tissue this year? I'm not gonna hope or wish for that sort of stuff, but maybe that's the sort of thing that gets him catches owners out this year. But for mine, I think that with Aaron Hall coming back, there's inherently a lot of risk that his scoring could be, stabilised somewhat on the back of that. So I'd be looking at the big dogs being Stewie at 606 or 600 grand, whatever he is. Sinclair is a buy. And then, as you say, consistently turn it around. What I saw from Sissy over the last 2 weeks, he's been caught out playing on the key forward. He got Hogan on the weekend.
Yeah.
Before that, he played on Jezza Cameron. And he's doing such selfless captaincy-based acts, like not
We
taking
don't
kick-ins.
want that.
I know, but he's
that at
become
all.
selfless. And he's doing interviews with Dylan Buckley and friends. He's become the selfless man. He's maturing in front of our eyes. But in my opinion, Sicily's always going to be a buy. It's just, when does that moment come, and when does he turn the corner? And it's like, for me, I always come against sides with Sicily in it, and I always worry, like, is this the day he pumps out that 180? Like, is it going to happen today? But I've been pleasantly surprised that he's been copying the key forwards, and I mean, both key forwards have got the better of him. Being, I think Cameron kicked 6 on him, and this week Hogan was taking plenty of contested marks. He missed the late one, took a huge contested mark from Coniglio kick inside 50 and just didn't convert. So for me, I'd go up to someone more proven, resilient than Zeeble at 540. I'd pay the 580 or 590 and get a Sinclair or a Stewie for mine.
You mentioned, Matthew Murphy's got the cash there, so good answer.
Yep,
They want to ask
got
you
140.
about another one, Dan Magala. A couple of questions coming through here on Andy Brayshaw, little Andy. What's up with him? Trading, holding? What do you think?
Again, it's like the Aaron Hall, Jack Zeeble conundrum. One player is cannibalising his output, and that's Caleb Sarong. Like, obviously, he's taken his game to a new gear this year. He's become the big dog inside at Freo, and he's gone from that tagging paradigm that he used to look after in the past. But amongst my mates, we've got a nickname for Brayshaw, because the year he broke out was year 2, and we called him Brace Shout, like break out, Brace Shout. And recently we've been saying, we went from today he's shouting like he's having a great day, and now we call him Bray Whisper, because he's not shouting anymore. He's not breaking out. Bray Whisper. He's gone very quiet, and his performances aren't really screaming and burning the house down. He's really sort of still getting a bit of the footy, but he's not hitting targets as well as he did, and he's not getting the contested stuff. For me, he's a buy, and probably, I don't know, once he plateaus out at 450 or 500 grand, wherever that seems to be, I'd love to slot him into my side at M8, because we know he can go 200. We've seen it before against Richmond in the wet that day in the slops. He's a real mutter. So for me, he is keep a close eye on, because there will be a day when a player of his ilk turns the corner, and you won't have much of a time to think about it. You'll have 2 to 3 weeks, and you'll just have to land him in your side some way and move heaven and earth to do so. So for me, if you're an owner, I think you're probably stuck now. Like, I feel like he's lost enough capital to succumb to keep him in your side. But as a non-owner like ourselves, he's the type of player that I have high hopes on dragging into my side and buying at a substantial discount to the starting price of 650 or whatever he was.
Yep, I agree. It's an upgrade around him now, I think, Luke.
Yep.
And then reassess. Dan Batten, Stephen Coniglio, 485k, great price. Obviously, no Tom Green as well this week. We talk about a lot of the top guys in the midfield, especially, and even in defence. Not a lot of real value. None of the players have really dropped yet. But you look at Stephen Coniglio, 485k, a nice upgrade, an easy upgrade to make there, given the cash required. But it's a good question here from James, though, because is he a top 10 for? Probably top 10, but let's narrow it down a bit more. Is he a top 6 to 8 chance, Stephen Coniglio, after what you've seen the last couple of weeks?
I think he still is. I mean, he's winning heaps of the footy still, has a pretty good role. Just seems to disappear at times, randomly. Like he'll be on 40 at quarter time and then, or 80 at 3/4 time, and then he ends up on 90 or something like that. So he's one I'm definitely going to be looking to target next couple of weeks. I mean, he had 29 touches and a ton the other day, and he does have a high ceiling at times as well when things are going his way. But I guess it depends how your side sort of shaping up. Obviously, we're moving Siebel or Sheasel. Most of us are moving one of them into defence now. So I guess we have got an open slot there in the forward line. But even some of the forward rookies are going okay, like your Chandlers. Obviously, Sheasel, absolutely killing it. So, but yeah, to that question, I think he is still a top 6 to 8. And anything under 500K is pretty good buying. So he's one that if I don't get Dawson this week, I can potentially save 40, 50K getting Bont or maybe 20K getting Took, and then I can grab Cogs next week, or be more sure of being able to get him in next week.
One more for you before we look at Friday night footy. Dom asks, is Lachie Neal a must-have? You obviously revelled in his huge performance out at Mount Barker last week as a starting owner. Would you recommend trading him in, though? Dom was looking at another boost. 3 rookies out, Lachie Neal in. What do you reckon?
I wouldn't be getting him in right away. I mean, he's had that one really good game against the Roos, but other than that, the week before, he had 20 touches. So he has been a little bit of a frustrating own until that point. Obviously, I think that, we wouldn't be talking about him if he scored 110 last week. So I think it's chasing points a bit. And, if I had my time again, I would pick Bont 100% over Neal. So, yeah, I wouldn't be getting him in this week. I'll be watching, to see if it's consistent, because it seems like Dunkley is taking some of that hard footy away from Neal at times, and he hasn't been horrible by any stretch. But yeah, I'd have Took ahead, especially with his run and his consistency. Is the number one man in there clearly, whereas Neal and Dunkley seem to be sharing the load a fair bit.
Yep. I lied. We'll do one more. Chase Jones. A couple of questions on Chase Jones here. I think the third lowest break even in the comp, 308K. Was a sub in round 3, but it's gone bang bang in the last couple of weeks. And Hipster made a pretty good point on the show. Again, he's having a good year, the Hipster. Not often I say makes a good point, but did make another one. It's all about Chase Jones. Obviously, a high draft pick, was pushed in early on in his career to play and given the opportunity. But this year, with the Crows got a bit of depth now, been made to earn his spot in the side. He's worked hard over summer, worked hard early when he didn't get picked to start the AFL season. He's come in and playing with a lot of confidence as well, which the whole side is. So as a player coming in, I'm liking what he's doing, but it's an interesting one in KFC SuperCoach. Dan McGullah, from a pure money point of view, 308K, is it the right time? Is it the right price to jump on a money train like Chase Jones? Tommy asks here as well, Chase Jones then go up to Will Day next week. Are you advocating any of this?
Well, I don't mind it. Like, depends on what you trade scenarios. Like, I'm already down to 27, so I've burnt through quite a few with injuries and some aggressive shorts and stuff. But if you're still sitting in the 30s and your side's tearing along, and you've got Dawson and you've got English, you've got those key players that clearly are the key thematic of the year, you probably could do things like that, being like you buy low, sell high, get the next bloke, and it sort of all makes sense. I quite like that aggressive trading strategy, and it's sort of where I hope SuperCoach heads over the years as we get more, because I guess it's like buying. It's like you enjoy the experience of using trades, and I really like that part of the game. I'd never seen him on my radar, to be honest. Like, I think he's playing a forward role anyway, but I mean, I probably wouldn't do it given my circumstance. I've got 27 trades. He doesn't really is he entrenched in that side? As you say, Hipster says he's had to force his way back in. You'd know as well. He's had to force his way back in. There's still plenty of other players in the wings, Sam Berry and a few others that are looking to come back in this week. So I probably wouldn't touch him, to be honest, because it's an awkward price, 308K, unless you think you can do what everyone hopes you can do with a player, and that's generate 150 to 180K. Do you think he's worth 450 to 480K? Perhaps. You got to average about 85 to do something like that. So I'd be interested for that to happen. But it's interesting about what will happen with Will Day next week. He's had a good couple of weeks to get his young, developing body right. Obviously got that high that tackle. So perhaps he could be the perfect buy next week for those non-owners out there that is looking to upgrade a Wilmont or looking to get rid of a Conor McKenna out of his side, who's been a bit sporadic of late. But for me, Chase Jones doesn't have relevance. He's not a keeper. He's a stepping stone, but it depends on how many trades you've got, whether you even consider using a stepping stone mechanism like that.
Yep, I agree. Did some good work on a wing on Thursday night as well. But yeah, how do you get to him? You're going up from Jinby. You're not probably want to spend money to going up to him. I agree with the non-keeper call. If you're flying and you really need it, you can afford to burn 2 trades in a short time frame, then maybe. But I tend to agree. Let's have a look at Thursday night footy, which is disappointing. I have to wait another day for my KFC feast. I like my KFC on Thursday and Friday night, Dan Batten, but I'll have to settle for Friday night because it is Friday night. The footy is on, and your KFC Friday night feast is on its way. Score free delivery on your Friday night footy feast every Friday when ordering through the KFC app or kfc.com.au. It's game on. It sure is game on. Bulldogs and the Dockers on Friday night. Timmy English, obviously a big chance for a VC look. The Bont's playing too. Probably not Andy B in the VC and C, but I'll have a look at Tim English. Maybe VC him on Friday night. Otherwise, maybe, obviously because everyone's favourite loophole Madden from the Giants playing in the third game of the round on Saturday afternoon as well. So you might have to go early, but if you do have Charlie Constable still and he doesn't get named, the Suns play a bit later. So it'll be English VC for me. Otherwise, I'll go maybe Dawson into Dacos on Anzac Day using Constable if he's not named. What are you guys thinking? Friday night footy, anyone for you in Friday night's game? Dan Batten.
Oh, yeah. So I'm thinking either Bont maybe as VC if I trade him in, or Dawson, as you said, potentially as a VC option. But I'm hoping, just praying that Shrek can do something against English and limit his influence as a non-owner, or maybe Jackson just puts a hard tag on him around the ground. That would be nice because no one can catch him at all. He's just averaging over 20 touches, scoring for fun, taking the P155 in KFC SuperCoach. So, and I just didn't have the Cameron and other issues to trade him in. Or I had a wits issue, had about 5 minutes to trade in English and traded in Grundy instead. And he might be with Gorn this week. So, hopefully I'm just hoping that English has one down game and I can eventually short Grundy to English. But yeah, I think, here we go, Shrek to destroy English. That is an interesting call. I'm hoping that happens. But yeah, I think it's probably more likely to be the other way around.
What are you thinking, Dan McGartha?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched Tim English tear games up. I guess like the one thing I noticed in that Port game, he just monstered Lysett. Lysett got subbed out of the game because he was getting absolutely torn a new one by English, who's in the richest vein of form. He is the All-Australian ruckman right now. There is no comparison on that. I noticed he got on the end of a lot of intercepts. He did the hard stuff. He took some big contested marks. He laid some monster tackles. He's doing everything right now. So I'd say that the coach of Fremantle will send a method down to both Jackson and Hodor. It'll be obviously to be very physical at the contest, like very physical in all the rucks. And that's what Shrek will do, and Hodor, as I like to call him. He'll put a lot of work into the stoppage, but I still think English is in a rich vein of form. No one's stopping this bloke. And that's why, as non-owners, it feels like a short squeeze. It hurts to watch him go week in, week out. Huge. I'll probably have to be knowing where Madden is. Obviously, he's early in the round, around the third game in the round. I probably will be forced to put it onto Bont, despite the notion that there's a big chance James Aish most likely heads to him, or Sarong. Someone like that goes head-to-head with him or puts a tag on. But again, I can't see Bont being susceptible to a James Aish, who probably gives up 15 kilos and about 10 centimetres in height against him. So I don't think that's going to be a big deal for him. And he's in a really rich vein of form. Contested work, his clearance work's unbelievable. So it's probably Bont into Clary on Monday night in the Anzac Day Eve game. I think Clary's form, he had 30 touches in the second half when he sort of finally woke up, I guess, and then got rid of the tag from Setterfield. But do we have any worries at all about Nick Dacos on Anzac Day? Do we think that Scott might deploy a tag of some sort? I mean, Setterfield's not quick enough to keep up with Dacos, and Setterfield's an inside beast. Is there someone that can go with Dacos and thwart this little fella? I think he's just going to go and have a day out and win the medal. But what do you guys think on that?
Travis has put in here in the comments, he thinks Jai Caldwell could do some sort of role on Nick Dacos. I tend to agree with you, Dan McGuire, that is probably good enough. Anyway, ideally, probably maybe like a VC to look at him potentially, but I think he's probably going to be good enough in the form he's in, how hard he works, and how he wins the footy, and how many ways he can win the footy. I think he'll still be okay to lean on as C. Dan Batten, what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. I reckon I wouldn't see him anyway. I mean, I was nervous about a tag coming from Ross, and Dacos ended up having 41 disposals and just, walking through defence with ease. So, and just he has himself captain in his own Supercoach team. You can just see it, the way he goes, wanders around for handballs to every single teammate. We absolutely love it. Wow, that's quite the question there for Dan Magala.
I like that, Julian.
Wow, I'll let it. That's thrown me. I'll let him take that question.
Yeah, I've got my feet in one of those. Yeah, I've got my feet in one of those fish baths. Like fish are like swimming around there, like taking the dried skin off my feet. So that's where they are right now in a warm bath. So it's pretty cool. It's a great experience.
All right. Well, we'll finish on that note.
Yeah, that's a zinger of the week.
Adrian mentioned there's a medal on the line, so Darcy Parish for the win. I'm looking at trading Darcy Parish in quickly, just quietly.
Ooh.
This week. Wow. Can't afford any of the Tukes and the Marcus Bontempellis of the world. So I think Parish is primed to go on a bit of a tear like he did at this same stage last year, but we'll see how that plays out. That'll do us. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us again here on KFC SuperCoach Live TV. Thanks, everyone, for joining in, watching and commenting and asking your questions. We're back to do the same thing next week. We might have our famous leader, Al Payton, back in the host chair next week. But good luck in your KFC SuperCoach teams over the week. Enjoy the footy, enjoy the KFC, and we'll see you next week.